everyone, and welcome back to RIFC Nation. I'm your host, Matt, and this is episode 6. Please click that like button and subscribe to the channel. And remember, you can always find RIFC Nation on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. In continuing with talking about first on this podcast, unfortunately, this one will have me talking about Rhode Island FC's first loss as we saw the Tide fall 4-1 away to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I decided to attend this one at the joint RIFC and Defiance watch party at the German American Cultural Society of Rhode Island. First off, I love going there. We go there with my family for a lot of the Oktoberfest and different parties they have, and it's just a good place, good people, and always a good time. And just the thought of good German beer while watching RIFC had me sold, and I even got the blessing from my wife, so even better to go there guilt free. It filled in pretty quickly, and there was a very sizable crowd ahead of kickoff. I got to sit and talk with quite a few people and take the obligatory selfie with Chip when he entered the room. With a good crowd, good beer, good food, and a great atmosphere, I was excited to watch this one. RIFC starting 11 was Jackson Lee in for the injured Koke Vegas and net, Stephen Turnbull, Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, the return of Clay Holstad, albeit in a defensive position, Jojea Quizera, Joe Brito, Mark Ibarra, Connor Reglin, who actually wore the armband for this one, Albert Chico Diqua, and Noah Fuzon. On the bench was Smith, Sadie, Doyle, Nodarse, Alves, Chumasi, and Silvera. And overall, it was a pretty decent start to this one for the guys in amber. In the early stages, RAFC saw the main share of possession and was getting the ball into some really good spots. One thing that really impressed me was substitute goalkeeper Jackson Lee's distribution. And this was really highlighted in the 16th minute as he pinged a ball down the right flank that took a very friendly bounce and sent Albert Diqua in on goal uncontested. Chico did what Chico does and calmly slapped the ball home, giving RIFC the early 1-0 lead. The atmosphere inside the GACS was electric. There were loud cheers, lots of high fives. Chip ran around, did a little dance, and we thought we were on our way. And then, boy, oh boy, did the Tide go out. It felt almost immediately after the goal that RAFC sat back and went into shell mode, if you will. Seemed to me a bit like we were just kind of playing not to concede rather than keep up the attack. Tampa was on the ball a lot and was getting the ball into good spots in advanced positions. This heavy possession coupled with a couple of dives and a very favorable whistle saw the Rowdies maintain possession and get some free kicks in good areas. Despite heading into the half leading 1-0, I could see the alarm bells ringing and knew that there needed to be an adjustment, so was hoping that adjustment would come at the halftime talk. First half stats included a 52% possession lead for the Rowdies. RIFC outshot Tampa 7-3, with each team seeing 2 of their shots on target. Tampa had 3 corners to our 2. And one of the biggest stats that bothered me was the fouls, and people I was sitting next to can attest to my displeasure with this one. Um, Rhode Island committed 11 fouls in the first half just to Tampa's 5. And I don't know if committed is the right word on that one. There were a lot of dives, flops, and I think just overall short whistles. There were a few quite and clear, obvious dives by the Rowdies players, with match official Elvis Osmanovic took the bait for on almost every single one of these. I thought he had very little to no consistency with that whistle. There was very minimal contact that resulted in a foul almost every time, including 2 bookings, with Chico's in the 34th minute just being laughable at best. He was fighting for a 50-50 ball, shoulder to shoulder. Rowdy player fell down, and Chico got a yellow. I think it was more so that he had picked up a foul right before it, but I thought it was barely a foul, let alone a yellow card. Unfortunately, we're going to have to contend with the standard of officiating in the USL Championship all season long, each and every match. And I'll come back to Elvis and his poor decisions a little bit later in this one. I know I've said on previous episodes on the discipline for RIFC being an issue and the falling starting to bother me, but this was a different story in my book. To sum up that first 45, I felt we were extremely lucky to be up at the break and to not have conceded. Tampa opened the second half very much on the front foot, like the first half ended and leveled the score at 1-1 in the 54th minute after a poor skied clearance, which ended up taking a heavy touch off of Fuzon and allowed the Rowdies defender to chip in a ball over the top, sending Miguel Arteaga in one-on-one with Jackson Lee, and Arteaga was able to head it up and over the Rhode Island keeper. This set up a line of fouls that occurred, including a yellow on Tampa player Cal Jennings, which I thought was a pretty bad foul that very easily could have been a red. There was no attempt at the ball, just tried to clear out the RIFC player. But with human nature being what it is, it saw Jennings give the Rowdies the lead just 6 minutes later after he rifled home a left-footed shot from the center of the box into the top left 90. This was quite a hit. The RIFC defense was backpedaling and gave Jennings way too much time and space, and he capitalized by hitting an absolute rocket. Nothing Jackson Lee could do there. This was just, put it in the postage stamp, and he hit it, man. That was quite a shot. The defense in midfield, or what there was of a midfield, continued with a theme of time and space as Tampa extended their lead in the 72nd minute as Perez sent a ball in from a set piece that Jordan Doherty headed home. Another set piece goal for RIFC, keeping their tally going with one per match so far. I said on the last episode, we look so dangerous in the opposing box on set pieces. But when it comes to time to defend them, we look lost, generally switch off at the wrong times. Tampa Bay wasn't done after this one as they again added to their total in the 6th minute on the additional 11 as Damian Rivera slotted home a shot from the center of the box into the bottom right corner, giving the Rowdies the 4-1 lead and ultimately the victory. Overall, this was a depressing one on paper and on form. I, as many others, thought this could be the one where we go out and get our first win. Our high press lasted for what seemed like all of 15 minutes as it disappeared immediately following the goal that put us up 1-0. In the midfield was a vast wasteland of nothing. We haven't been able to generate much of anything at all in the middle of the park on any of our matches, and now it's coming into not being able to defend in the middle of the park, and that lack of pressure on our opponents is leading to more pressure on our back line and goals conceded. When I initially saw the lineup, I thought it was harsh dropping Nodarse and was intrigued to see how Holstead would do as a member of the back line in what seemed to be a very fluid formation. Knew he was going to probably interchange with Turnbull a lot, but it just didn't work. Holstead does his best work in the midfield, so taking him out and dropping him further back was ultimately a recipe for disaster. I did like the addition of Colin Smith, the 20-year-old who was just signed, subbed on in the 74th minute, and I thought he helped us advance the ball a bit down the right flank. He made 3 passes into the final third on just his 17 touches. He seems like a big, strong kid. He's pretty fast, too, so I think he can kind of give us a little bit more stability. I know there were goals conceded after he came on, but I think a lot of those had to do with the midfield and what they've been offering and just set piece defending. Hopefully this experiment opened up Kano's eyes a bit that we need to bolster this midfield and play up a back line of true defenders. But I will give Kano credit for wanting and sticking with playing an expansive style of football with the high press and trying to play the ball out of the back. When it works and it looks really good. And that's kind of at most levels where you see it at. But when it goes wrong, man, does it go wrong. And it went wrong in Tampa. However, like anything else in life, there needs to be balance to this. And for me, that balance starts in the midfield. Final stats for this one saw Rhode Island narrowly edge Tampa in possession 52 to 48%. This one came as a surprise for me as I thought they had so much more of the ball than we did, kind of watching it live and, just watching the flow of the game. Shots were 16 to 10 in favor of the home side with a 6 to 4 advantage in the tally on target also going to Tampa. Tampa Bay created 7 big chances to R2 and attempted 8 corners for R2. As I mentioned earlier, I'd come back to Elvis. He did not leave the building yet. And the second half, he continued to blow that whistle, giving Tampa an insane amount of calls on an insanely little amount of contact. Final foul totals in this one were 20 on Rhode Island and 13 for Tampa. The discrepancy in this felt even more in watching this one and what exactly he was calling. It was even highlighted in the discipline as he booked 5 Rowdy players to just the 2 in Rhode Island. I thought it was a soft whistle on Rhode Island players and essentially kind of forced himself into yellows on Tampa because he was letting all the soft stuff go, and they'd continue and proceed to foul, turning into a harder foul or finally bringing a player down, which led to yellow cards. Well, overall, I've had no problems with the way opposing teams have played in the first two matches, but this Tampa team just irked me a bit. They dove, they flopped, and whined all over the pitch. I thought Munjama slid into reckless challenge after reckless challenge and escaped with just the one yellow. He very easily could have and should have been sent off, in my opinion. He had a sliding tackle that was whistled for a foul immediately after his yellow card, and I think it was the referee just not wanting to send someone off. He was a player that had a big impact on the match for Tampa, and I think did not belong to be on the pitch for the full 90. This is not a style that I could get behind watching week in and week out. So I am glad that we play the way we do. I just did not enjoy watching this Tampa team play at all. But we move on. I generally give my top three performers of the match, but this one was a bit too hard to pick, and I did not want to try to put any or too much of a positive spin on some truly bad performances. But for the sake of doing something and keeping with the segment, I'll name a man of the match, and I guess I'll go with Chico, who scored his third goal of the season in the third match. Just the least bad option in this one for me. FOTMob had him with a rating of 7.3. He had 3 shots, all of which were on target, 1 successful dribble, and 2 duels won. But he only had 27 touches. I talked on a previous episode how I felt we would need to find better ways to get him service, and that was again highlighted in this one. Good things happen when Chico gets the ball. I don't know if you know this, but he's really good at scoring goals. So we need to find the way to get that ball on his feet as much as possible. Further reason we need to get this midfield sorted out ASAP. Who was your man of the match for this one? Let me know in those comments or let me know on the social media posts. Speaking of comments, I combed the socials, and here is what all of you had to say about this one. And we got a lot of responses, so thank you to everyone who wrote in. We're going to start with the Reddit responses, which Liverpool said lack of coordination and communication, and then a lack of effort. Once we went behind a goal, got to show more grit than that. A couple of times we had the ball in the opponent's 18-yard box late in the second half. Several players were simply walking around. The team will grow, but more needs to be asked of them in tough times. I agree. It looked like almost like the fitness was off in this one. It looked like a beautiful night in Tampa, but there was a lot of walking and enjoying the scenery. Mike M. Jr. 121 said the high pressing 3-5-2 is not sustainable for longer than a half right now. The squad is gassed in the second 45, which is leading to a lot of turnovers, miscues, and mistakes. Got away with it in the first 2 games, but this loss was probably coming. Maybe it's worth sticking with it a little while longer, but I do wonder if a more balanced, defensive-oriented 4-4-2 would make more sense. We've conceded the most goals, and if not for a few fortunate offsides calls against MBFC, it could have been more. I agree with you, Mike. There has to be a more of a defensive balance. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the proper fullbacks to do that. I think we're just equipped with the wingbacks, so that might kind of uh, hold the system into what it is. Turnbull having to play more of the defensive fullback, I think would struggle. I do think Colin Smith could maybe get that job done. Quazera is not going to do it, so it's interesting. 4-4-2 very well could work, but it'd be interesting to see how the fullbacks would play in that one, because I think the wingbacks is kind of more of the style for this one. In reply to Mike's comment on Twitter, OJ Valley replied to with agree on this. 3-5-2 could work really well, and we've seen flashes of that during the first 45 in these games. But you're spot on about the team being gassed in the second half. That's fine, I suppose, if you're able to capitalize on the first half intensity and get up 2 or 3 goals. But we haven't really seen the explosiveness we need from that kind of scheme. And I agree with that response as well. I think it's just kind of we don't have that midfield playmaker. We don't have a true number 10 in this team. We have a couple holders, and even they aren't really doing that type of job. They're kind of going box to box and moving with the play versus kind of dictating the play. Bear Johnson 19 posted to state the obvious, the second half was pretty rough. I'm not a soccer buff, but it seems that RIFC has a great passing game up the field. They've looked really smooth working the ball up into a good offensive position over the past couple of games, up until roughly 30 minutes into the game last night. Ibarra messed up that touch, leading to the second goal from Tampa, and then it felt like the momentum carried Tampa through the rest of the night. Disappointing that RIFC couldn't seem to find their footing again after that. Regardless, I feel that their chemistry is really strong for a new team, and I'm generally happy with their performance so far. It was just a rough night. Let's hope it was just a rough night, because it was not so rowdy on our end, and hopefully it can be one we only improve from. But that Ibarra miscue was a really big gaffe and leading to that second goal, and I think it just kind of goes back to we need that defensive line and midfield applying a bit more pressure and kind of holding positions. BJax19 said, we need to figure out the midfield. Thank you, BJax. I love that one. And the center backs need to work on their communication. Also, I felt we missed Koke a lot on a few of the goals. Basically, everything in between Koke and Dikwa has been average or worse so far this season, but it should get better with more experience as a squad. I agree. I also don't want it to sound too harsh on Lee. I think he did play well. Obviously, his distribution was top notch, as I mentioned before. He did have 2 saves, but hard to pin him on any of the goals specifically. I think it's pinned definitely more on the defense or on the midfield and on the midfield. R.A. Healy nailed home 3 points with number 1, but we were too cute with the lineup and formation. Dropping Holstad into the back line didn't really work. Agree with you there. He looked like a midfielder, asked to defend rather than dictating play from the back. Shocked it took us so long to change it. Definitely agreed there. Number 2, overconfident after the gifted goal. The first goal overshadowed some real issues with the way we were trying to play, which ended up biting us. I'll push back on that one a little. I don't know about overconfident. I think we kind of shelled up after that. And I think before that goal, we were playing pretty well. I think it was after the goal where the issues really started to kind of hit. And he wrote on point number 3, set piece defense. This is a serious issue. Some of the lack of chemistry and open play makes sense for a new team, but most of the piece defense as effort. Really poor to start the season, giving up a set piece goal every game. And Yankee Sullivan added, my thoughts, games are 90 minutes long, not 45. The team strategy might need to be adjusted. 1 goal leads are never good enough to go get another. And in the RIFC Nation Facebook group, which, may I add, has been soaring in size. So if you're on Facebook and you're not a member of that group, click the link in this description and go join it ASAP. We're getting a lot of people in it, getting a lot of good posts in it as well. John Sullivan commented on, what the heck was that performance? Possession was dreadful. And I think to like John said, I felt watching this one live, we were dominated in possession. But to read, we actually had the overwhelming, or not overwhelming, but we had the majority share with 52% at the end. Was surprising to me, but I guess it was the quality of possession. I think Tampa had good possession where they were advancing the ball, they were stringing together passes. We were kind of a one-trick pony, hit it long and see if we could get somebody to chase on it. So, quality of possession does definitely need to improve. Mike Baisley said, dreadful second half. And finally, Tim Sheldon added, let's hope this makes them stronger and moving forward. So a big shout out and thank you to everyone who wrote in. If you're new to this, I make a post-match post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and in the Rhode Island FC Reddit, looking for your thoughts on the result and bring those thoughts to each episode. So if you'd like to share your thoughts, be on the lookout after each final whistle, each match, and hit those comments. You can click the link in this episode description to find and follow all of my accounts. Like Tim ended with, let's hope this makes them stronger moving forward. Next up for Rhode Island FC is a visit from the Charleston Battery on Saturday, April 6th at 7:30 p.m. back at home. The Battery are currently in 3rd place on 8 points through 4 matches with a +5 goal differential. Charleston drew their first 2 matches with a 0-0 at North Carolina FC and a 1-1 versus Oakland Roots SC. They are on a 2-game win streak with a 4-0 home thumping of New Mexico United and most recently a 2-1 road win over Miami FC. I'll be going live tomorrow, April 2nd at 4:45 p.m. with Mike, who is the president of Regiment 8843 Charleston Battery Supporters Club. So be on the lookout for those posts and feel free to comment with any questions you'd like me to ask him. Also, if you're not already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel as I do these preview episodes live so you can get your comments and questions in the chat. If you join any of the live shows, we can see and read everything that you post. We can pull up those comments on the screen. They're pretty cool. We've had some good input so far from viewers. So make sure you hit subscribe. Even if you cannot make the live show and you hit subscribe, you can go back and watch every episode back. But I want to bring your thoughts and your questions to these. I enjoy connecting with the people from the other clubs, just kind of learn about the clubs, being new to the league, and hopefully you enjoy that as well. But that will wrap things up for this one. Hopefully we learn from the many issues down in Tampa and can improve, although it will be a tough test back home versus a very good Battery squad. Thanks again for checking out RIFC Nation. I've been your host, Matt, and I'll see you next time. Up the Tide.